Oh no, what's going on? Oh no. Oh no. Hello. I don't know whether you're there. I don't know whether I've got problems. There seems to be something strange going on with my webinar service. So I've no idea whether this is broadcasting properly or not. It kind of seems to be, I think, fingers crossed. Anyway, if you're here, because I'm not quite sure what's happening now, it all looks a bit strange. But it's nice to have you here. So thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at creating great ideas today, which is really exciting because we all need new ideas to do something different. So this is fantastic. So thank you for joining me. Anyway, we've got lots to get through today. Only got half an hour to go through things. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box and I will do my best to answer them at any time, which is great. And you know, research has just shown that working and living and thinking creatively is just so much better than working competitively. So that's really, really good that you're interested in doing that. So fantastic. So I've got some slides to share with you. So I'm just going to put those up now. So here we go. There we are. So hopefully you can now see the slides. So as I said, today's webinar is hopefully going to inspire you with some great ideas. And here we go, there's me again. And I specialised in creative thinking and lateral thinking as I was working as a business analyst. And I now coach individuals and businesses in building resilience using creativity and the power of story. So we're going to be having a look at a little bit of that today. Now, we all have access to creative inspiration. We are all born creative. You know, we needed that skill in order to be able to learn language and to work out how we fit into the world. But life situations and the culture in which we grew up have an effect upon our beliefs. And yet many of us can find it difficult. You know, during our childhoods, we take on and learn beliefs of the people around us, in our culture, in our families, just generally, really. And in later life, we can end up sort of sniffing around, looking for creativity, thinking it's a little elusive. And that's not, that's tricky. That's not easy. And we can just end up feeling like we don't have access to being creative, or that it's really difficult to find. And, even if we do find it, how do we know if it's any good? We can easily doubt our ability. We can stem from our thinking that in order to be creative, we need to be able to think out of the box. But as you later find out, this isn't the case at all. So let's have a look at what we're going to be covering today. So, okay. So creating great ideas. Now we're going to start by looking at why we need to create. Why accessing our innate creativity is important, because it really is. Then we're going to bust some myths about who a creative person is, and we're going to look at the different types of creativity. Then we're going to go on to have a look at the environment around us and how that can affect how we create. Then we'll look at a great tool for creating ideas, and that's really exciting. Then we're going to have a look at whether those ideas are any good or not. So we're going to look at evaluation of them. And then lastly, about how we can inspire other people with our ideas, because, sometimes we just need to get other people on board and excited to bring our ideas into reality. So why do we need to create? Well, there's lots of reasons why we need to create, and I've put a list there. And to start off with, the first one is that we might need to inspire other people. We might need to be able to, get other people on board. We might want them to take action on something. We might want them to do something or buy something or go somewhere or whatever, to inspire people, which is really exciting. And we might want to get a message across. Maybe we want to add value to somebody else's life. Maybe we want to do something that's a bit different, or get people to think in a different way or whatever. And we also we might want to create a way around an obstacle or put in place positive change, which is really exciting. We are living really changeable times. Everything's changing. Workplaces are changing. The way we live our lives is changing with technology. And sometimes we just need to find ways to be able to deal with things. And we might need to we might be in a workplace where we need to think about creating new products and services, or maybe just looking at new processes and ways of doing things. And if we've got an idea for something, or we want to work for ourselves, or have an idea to market a new product or something, we might want to have financial backing, or maybe just mentor backing. It might be any other sort of backing, usually financial. And you might want to look at pitching an idea to an investor. We might want to look at soaring in our career or in our business. After all, creativity is much, much more powerful than working competitively. And we might want to just find balance in our lives. We might want to look at how we can create a good balance in our lives. And maybe we work too much, or maybe we do certain things too much, and we just want to get a good balance. Or maybe we just want to have a look at doing things in a different way. Looking at it in a different perspective, looking objectively at something, and finding a different way of doing something. So, there's lots of reasons why we want to create. Being creative isn't just about being an artist or being a writer, although that's brilliant if you are. Creativity impacts on everybody's lives right across the board. And what creativity really could do, though, is strengthening our ability to create not only the resilience with us, but it could also help us to make a difference. And the thing I keep hearing all the time is that I'm not creative. Do you know what? But that really, really isn't the case at all. And we are all creative. There are different types of creativity. So we're going to look at step 2 now, is types of creativity. There's no wrong or right way to create. There are different ways. And recently, researchers have begun to ask, how do people express their creativity in different ways? And what they came up with was the style approach. Now, your style doesn't determine how far you can go in terms of being creative. And there was this theory that's been put together about adapters and innovators. And it was developed by a British researcher called Michael Curtin. And he suggested that people fall along a line or an arc or a continuum from one end to the other. Now, we did this bit of research in businesses, in organisations, lots of different sorts of organisations. And at one end, we have a very adaptive approach to creativity. And at the other end, we have a much more innovative approach. So now it doesn't matter where you sit, because, it doesn't matter how far along that line you are or that arc you are towards being an innovator. That doesn't determine how creative you are. And Curtin's research in organisations found that some managers were much more comfortable with introducing change that perfected, improved and extended current operations and systems, whereas other managers wanted to generate more radical change that threatened the existing operations. And Curtin called the manager who generated ideas that improved current systems the adapter, and the manager who tended to generate more radical change, he called them an innovator. Now, adapters are people who tend to focus on the details. They can be precise, reliable, they're predictable. And I've suggested that this fits in with people like accountants who, like the same sort of routine, they follow a logical path, things like that. Where innovators are described as focusing on novelty, and they approach problems from unexpected angles. They challenge assumptions. So they're quite different styles of working and thinking. And I've suggested there that people working in research and development tend to be more of the innovator type. Now, both styles are valuable, and we can have a tendency to undervalue the adapter style. And as a consequence, we can lessen the confidence of adapters. And it's useful to expand our view of creativity and recognize that there are different styles. But if you're an adapter and you're not an accountant, now for my purposes, I used to work as an accountant. And I'm more of an innovator style. So if you have a personal type and a behavioral type in the way you think, doesn't fit in with the type of job you do, then it can cause an element of stress where you don't tend to fit in, or you can see different ways of doing it and you can become frustrated with that. Now that leads us on to creating a creative environment. And that's really, really important, because so far we've focused on identifying creative people and we've looked at our creative beliefs. But the thing is that we can have creative people and we can have creative processes, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that creativity will be produced. Because you can have the people have all the ingredients to be creative inside them, but if you put them in conditions that don't support their creativity, then it's not likely to emerge. So in this section, we're going to have a look at two different types of environment. We're going to look at physical environment and the psychological environment. So physical environment. Now, we all have a preference to create in different ways. Some people prefer early mornings, other people like late at night. Some people prefer different physical settings. Some prefer a very formal setting. They like to be in maybe an office setting, and others more informal. They would actually feel more creative going out for a walk or sitting in the park or sitting in a cafe or somewhere like that. Now, people also like a preference to sound. Now, my husband likes to create with the radio on, and I kind of like it quiet. So I can't get enough headspace to think if there's a lot of noise going around, whereas actually my husband likes the sound. He finds that freeing for his mind to be able to create. Now, we have other people that like to eat and drink when they create. People have preferences for different levels of lighting. And the people that did this study were Rita and Ken Dunn. And they found that there wasn't one precise formula that fits all creators. So we need to figure out our own learning style and our own creating style. And if you're trying and wanting to put that together in a work environment, then the more you know the people that you're going to be creating with, the better. To try and get the right physical environment that's going to be the most conducive to all of you. Not always easy, I know, especially if people are more creative at night. It's a bit more difficult to get people in an office then. So the next thing to think of is the psychological environment as well. And this refers to the atmosphere in a workplace or in a home or in a classroom or wherever you are. And it's all about the attitudes, the feelings, the behaviours that are within that atmosphere. Now, just like a physical climate has an impact on our feelings and attitudes and behaviours, so does the psychological climate. Now, do we feel able to express our ideas? Does the environment feel safe? Do we feel fear looking foolish or face being criticised? Because if we do, all those feelings will impact on how creative we feel we can be. So it's important to create an environment in which people feel safe to show their creativity. And when we do feel safe, we're in a position then to be able to go ahead and create some great ideas. I'm going to take you through a really good technique now for having a look at creating some great ideas. So the most powerful thing about this technique is knowing that we make use of a different mindset when we create ideas compared to when we evaluate them. Now, knowing that is really, really powerful because, so often we have the problem is that people try to evaluate it at the same time that they're thinking the ideas. Now, we use divergent thinking to come up with them, And then we converge all our thinking together to evaluate them. And it's very, very easy for people to come up with an idea and immediately criticize it for not being any good. Now, you imagine that you're in a room with lots of other people all trying to come up with ideas to solve a problem. So think about how you'd feel if you came up with an idea and immediately it was put down or criticized by someone else as being no good. Now, how would that make you feel? And it can make people feel stupid, it can make people feel not creative, unknowledgeable, and all sorts of other feelings. And when people feel criticized, they pull back on their creativity with the belief that their ideas aren't any good. Because we wouldn't, would we? If you put yourself forward and then you feel a bit shot down in flames, your idea, you're not going to be quite so eager to put yourself forward with another idea. So that's why it's really, really important to get in the mindset of looking at ideas first. And the thing is to actually to really make it coming up with ideas fun. Try to craft them. So really, when you're thinking of ideas, you're just wanting to, it's not the quality of the idea, it's the quantity of the ideas. You're just wanting to come up with lots and lots and lots of ideas. It's almost just brainstorming them, but make it fun. And I met some people the other day who were working for firm solicitors. And they were wanting some ideas to look at how they were operating and create maybe, you know, some new ways of working. But they were busy. They were busy. You know, they were just full on. They had, you know, massive workloads, no time at all to be creative or come up with some ideas. But then they really needed to come up with an idea because they had to change the way they were working. So it was, you know, wow, it's going to be really difficult to find an hour or 2 hours to get together. And I said, well, why don't you make it fun? Make a game out of it. Do you drink coffee? Well, yeah, they drink coffee, they said. Well, why don't you put a chart up above your kettle? You know, have a competition, have a prize. People love chocolate, you know, and I found that works really well. So make a game, bring some fun into creating ideas. You don't need to sit people down in a serious environment in order to be able to create ideas. You can, you know, do it over a longer time period, have it over a week or two. As I said, leaderboard with ideas or something fun. So take that, things like that can take the pressure off coming up with something quickly and finding a way to do it now. And when I'm running workshops, I set boundaries. And I usually stick a notice on the wall which says something like, no criticism and no judgment. Because that's really, really key, you know. And the trick, as I said just now, that the trick is to go for quantity of ideas, not perceived quality, and just keep going with ideas. You know, the first ones that you'll come up with will be expected ones, you know, they'll be predictable. And then you start pushing, right, we want some more ideas. Then you might get some really wild and wacky ones, some silly ones. And that's great, because if we're in an environment where we don't criticize, we can have a bit of fun. We might laugh at something, you know, it might create more of an atmosphere for coming up with more ideas, which is great, you know. And then you start drying up with those ideas and it becomes hard. And then you just push again. Come on, we want some more ideas, more ideas. And you can use, there's lots of different tools and associations and games and different things you can do to keep that momentum going of ideas. But the interesting thing is those last ideas, the last, I don't know, if you're trying to go for 100 ideas, those last maybe 20 will be really hard, but they are often the most creative and inventive. And these are the ones that can lead to wonderful solutions. So don't give up too early is what I'm trying to say. You know, it's easy to stop too soon and think, oh, we've just got a few ideas. That's fine. We'll just go with one of those. But actually, you could have really, really missed an opportunity by coming up with something wonderful. And if you wanted to find out a little bit more about the tools or how to lead a workshop and all these sorts of things, you know, you can find we'll go through these sorts of journeys in the Creative Academy. So if you're a member, you know, you'll get led through all those sorts of processes, and you know, we can find out more about that later. And the next thing we want to have a look at then, so once we've got all our ideas, we want to evaluate them. And it's always really good to give ourselves a break before we evaluate them. So if you're wanting to do all of this in one day, maybe have a lunch break in between. At least have a coffee break as a bare minimum. You know, the more that we can have our little consciousness just sort of mull over the ideas, but without thinking about them. You know, they just sort of work in the background, just letting them sit there, don't think about them. And then when you come back and you can evaluate them, you need to, it's a different mindset. So if you can do it on a different day, that's great. But I know that's not always possible, because evaluation is where we bring judgment back into the mix. Because when we're creating ideas, we're escaping reality. We're just having a wish list, or this would be great, or this would be silly, or this would be fantastic. But now when you're evaluating, you're bringing it back into a reality, and it's really, really important to do it in a positive and a balanced way. So I use what's called a point tool to do this, and I look at each one in turn. So you've got to make sure each idea, you look at it separately. So that first of all, you grab that idea and you take the P and you say, P stands for positive. Now think of all the positive benefits and impacts that that idea can have. And spend some time thinking about it. Don't rush it, because this is really important. You know, what positive stuff can this do? Now, once you've finished, move on to the O for opportunities, and think of all the opportunities that your idea could lead to. You know, could it bounce onto something else? Could it lead to something? But so far, we started evaluating on a positive footing. So then have a think about, this is the slight negative bit, the issues. So we can have a think about the problems or the issues that that idea could cause. And then lastly, we want to think about the NT stands for new thinking. So having weighed up the positives and the opportunities and then the issues, have any of that led to any new thoughts about the idea? Because ideas, well, they don't often come fully formed. Yeah, sometimes they do, but more often than not, they don't. So you might need to take part of the idea and expand on it, or use that idea as a stepping stone to something else. It's just being aware of how our thoughts and how things can lead from one thing to another. Now, when we want to do that and we want to stepping stone into another idea or expand it, we have to be really, really careful, because our brains work in strange and mysterious and wonderful ways. And what it does is that it organizes the information that it gets coming in, and it forms patterns. So I've done the little pattern as a tunnel there. So what it does is it stores it like a new neural pathway in your brain, and so it can recognize it again in the future. And if it comes across that situation, it will just take you down that logical path. Now, where this becomes a problem when you've got new ideas and new thinking is that when you're faced with something crazy or innovative, say those red crosses on there, now our brain works like crazy to find an established pattern, however remotely that is connected, so that it can follow through the logic and thus get to an outcome. So think of it as a driver. Now, when you're driving along an unfamiliar road, you know, we're really, really conscious. We're looking to trying to find where we are. So we spend lots of times looking at road signs, looking out for recognizable landmarks, something that means something to us. Then as soon as we know where we are, we go into automatic driving mode. And we really don't have to think about what we're doing. We just sort of go on autopilot, don't we? And that's kind of the way our brain works. So when it's got something it doesn't understand or something new and it's thinking, whoa, what is this? What do I do with this? It's like us when we're driving and we're trying to sort out where we're going and what we're doing. And then once it's found a pattern, it just goes on autopilot and then just follows the structure. So we can end up, if we're not careful, by discounting an idea as not being very good because it doesn't fit in with how we've perceived things in the past. And it could be a fabulous, brilliant idea if we could look at it in a different way and have a different perception of that idea. So what it can do, if we're not careful, is it can lead us to thinking that there's no point in dreaming and that there's no point in pursuing new ideas because they don't work, or they wouldn't work for us, or we couldn't make them work, something along those lines. And that's really risky, because without variation and without novelty, there's no growth or evolution. So we need to move forward, we need to learn, we need to grow, and we need to feel inspired by that idea. And when we're inspired by an idea, we move on to the next step, which is inspiring others with our ideas. Now, psychologist Kurt Lewin indicated that proposed change will meet two forces: those who will help it be successful, and then those who will hinder its success. And that we need to take those 2 points of view and those 2 possible actions into consideration. So we need to understand who our audience is, and who are we wanting to inspire, and how much information do we want to give them. Now, if we look at the chart, which is kind of a good indicator, there's lots of different variations of this, but if somebody's got low power to turn our idea into reality, and low interest in your idea, then we really kind of don't want to spend much time trying to inspire them. Yeah, because there's not much point. We want to concentrate our efforts on those who have the highest power to make our idea into reality, and those who have interest. Yeah, even if it's low interest to start with, because we can generally build on that. So high power, high interest, those 2 top blocks are really the ones we kind of want to focus on more. And another way to think about it as well is that we need to think about those who are assisters, who will assist our idea, and those who will resist it. And doing all of that, looking at how much power or interest they might have, and whether they're going to help us or hinder us, actually makes us think about the future. It makes us think about how our idea is likely to be received. And we also need to bear in mind how people like to take on information. And we all have different preferences. And some of us like to feel like information in a very visual way. Some people like to hear about the information, and others like to feel that it's the right thing for them. They like to have that feeling. Do you know what I mean? They sort of get a gut feeling, oh yeah, that's great. So when we're unsure about our audience, it's kind of a good thing to be able to include something for everybody, include something visual, include something auditory, and something also that will take them along on that journey that you're trying to inspire them. And do you know what? The one thing that's really, really good for taking people along on that journey is story. Now, research has shown that we're all hardwired for story and that we resonate with them. And Carmine Gallo was analysing the TED Talks, the spread ideas TED Talks, fabulous, I love them. And he found that the most popular ones broke their speeches down into 65% narrative and story, because that's all about the triggering, the emotions, getting people on board. Then they put on 25% facts and figures, and 10% on building authority of who you are and your credibility. So that's really, a story is one of the best ways to deliver your message. So don't just think about the facts and figures, think about how you can inspire them to make a difference, to change what they're doing. And you might think, we kind of got to the end of the line here now, and I've gone through an awful lot of information really, really quickly. But if you want to find out how you can be inspired by new ideas and how you can inspire other people, this really doesn't need to be the end of the line at all, because you can go on and have a look at my creative resilience. I'm going to do some creative resilience course on my Creative Academy. This is a great way to build resilience as well, because creativity is a core skill in leadership and can stand you out from everybody else. And this power is only really just being recognised. And it makes it a really powerful time. It is a really powerful time to be part of my Creative Academy, because you can learn about the power of creativity, the power of story, which you can learn, use in your personal life and your professional life. And it's just really, really cool and so, so powerful. So I'd just really like to say thank you very much for joining me today. It's been great to have you along with me. Thank you for sharing part of your lunch break. This is fab. If you want to keep in touch with me, catch me on my email address, or on Twitter, on Facebook. So Facebook is at Why Follow the Herd, Twitter at Why Follow Herd. My email is debbie@whyfollowtheherd.com. Or you can check out my Creative Academy. So I just kind of want to just say thank you very much. And, want to wish you all the best with creating your ideas. I present regular webinars. So if you have, if you're not already on my mailing list, then why not sign up? Because then you can hear about all the stuff I do. I've had some ebooks, I have some free resources. So it's really great to have you as part of this journey. So thank you for joining me. It's been lovely to have you here. So I hope to see you again soon, and take care. Have a good day.